Good evening. Welcome to Thai PBS English News Service. I am Super John Glyn Sawan. The heavy traffic combined with the poor condition of some road surfaces are expected to combine to cause a lot of accidents during the New Year break. However, highway police are warning motorists about the 7 most notorious accident black spots around the country and advising motorists to be especially careful if they have to travel through them. The 7 accident black spots are the long curve between kilometer markers 77 to 78 on the Phonyotin Highway in Ayutthaya Wang Noi district, between kilometers markers 27 to 30 on the Mitraphab Highway in Tambon Muok Lek of Saraburi's Muong Lek district. This part of the road has a steep downhill gradient with several sharp bends. In front of the fish market between kilometers markers 28 to 35 on the inbound Rama 2 Highway in Samut Songkram's Muong district. This route is very slippery because of the water and waste leaking from the fish trucks. Between kilometer markers 42 to 48 on Highway 304 Kabinburi Paktong Chai in Nadi district of Prachinburi, as this part of the road undulates and contains several sharp S-curves. And between kilometers markers 76 to 79 on Highway 348 Aranyaprathet Nodindang in Tambon Ta Praya of Sakyao's Ta Praya district, which also undulates and has a number of dangerous S-curves. Between markers 40-41 of outbound Mitraphab Highway in Pak Chong district of Nakhon Ratchasima, there are many fruit and local product shops on the roadsides as this part of the highway, with cars entering and leaving parking spaces all the time. And finally, between kilometer markers 35 to 38 on the inbound Mitraphab Highway in Pak Chong district, which has a dangerous downhill gradient. The National Police Chief, Police General Adun Sang Sing Kao, has ordered 2,000 police to help traffic flow on all 4 major highways. However, traffic conditions heading north and northeast remain poor and heavy. Traffic also remains heavy on the 4 main routes of the town: Wipawdi Rangsit Road, Boromarachorani, Bang Natrad, and Rama 2. Traffic police officials have installed surveillance cameras on the highways to help estimate the traffic volume. The Ministry of Transport has also ordered the transport company to provide enough buses to handle 27,000 round trips. And according to the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation, a total of 33 people were killed and over 300 injured across the country in road accidents on December the 27th alone, the first day of the so-called 7 days of danger over the New Year festivities. Meanwhile, the Stop Drink Network and the Stop Underage Drinking Network met with the Public Health Minister earlier today to lobby the ban of the sale of alcohol on sidewalks.
Yesterday was the first day of the campaign entering the new year with a road toll cut by the Department of Disaster Prevention and Mitigation, and also the first day of the so-called 7 days of danger. The number of the road accidents so far is 314, in which 33 people have died and 322 were injured. 33.44% of the accidents were caused by drunk driving, and 21.66% were caused by speeding. Also, 82.41% of the accidents involved motorcycles, while 8.95% involved pickup trucks. Meanwhile, 20 people from the Stop Drink Network, together with the Stop Underage Drinking Network, met with the Public Health Minister to show support for the prohibition of alcohol sales on sidewalks, after the proposed regulation caused controversy among academics, who believe that the law could adversely affect the poor. The Public Health Minister said that the law needs to be considered again as some details are still unclear. As a reminder, though, it is currently illegal to drink alcohol in any kind of vehicle during travel. This includes both private cars and public service vehicles, both passengers and the drivers. No one is allowed to drink alcohol in vehicles.
The Tourism Ministry in 2012 saw an astonishing income of 450 billion baht, and the New Year holiday period this year is expected to see a doubling of last year's revenues. More stable politics, a full recovery from last year's floods, and more foreign tourists are the main factors driving the increased revenues in the tourism sector this year. 450 billion baht, the estimated tourist revenue for 2012, is a 15% jump year on year, with the year-end holiday spending alone expected to reach as much as 30 billion baht. During last year's New Year holiday, many Thais were still suffering from the worst floods in modern history and led to only 50% of the spending expected this year. The Thai Hotels Association reveals the hotel occupancy at famous tourist destinations is at 90%. Tourism analysts are saying more long-stay Chinese, Korean and Japanese tourists are likely to come to Thailand between from now and the Songkran holidays in April, partially due to the tensions in the Korean peninsula. Official figures released on the 20th of December this year confirmed that 21.7 million tourists entered Thailand this year. The Thai Meteorological Department is warning people in Chumphon province that the torrential rain is to be expected starting Monday and continuing until Wednesday next week. Meanwhile, the flood situation in Yala and Narathiwat provinces has improved since the rain has stopped yesterday.
Yala and Narathiwat have been flooded for over a week now, and the floodwater is now beginning to fill with sewage, causing a major health hazard. Provincial officials have been distributing relief aid to affected people. Although the rain in both provinces finally stopped yesterday, water level in Sungai Golok and Saiburi rivers remains high. In Yala province, after the rain has stopped, the floodwater level has decreased. Only the areas along the river are still affected by the flood, especially Balok Halor, Tha Thong, Geror, Kayu Bokok and Balot sub-districts. Ban Bukot Lamo and Ban Payonga schools have now reopened after having shut down for 3 days due to the flood. Meanwhile, the Thai Meteorological Department is warning people in Chumphon and further south of the possibility of torrential rain between Monday and Wednesday next week. The fishermen in the Gulf of Thailand should be careful and small fishing boats should stay in harbor.
There are only 3 days left for the first-time car buyers to submit their required documents to the Excise Department to claim their tax rebate. 1,200,000 applicants for the rebate have already been filed. First-time car buyers are still applying for the tax refund under the government's first-time car buyer program. Somchai Poonsawat, Director General of the Royal Thai Customs, expects the number of qualified applications to reach 1,200,000, way above the initial prediction of only 500,000. The Excise Department forecasts that 86 billion baht will be allocated to the tax refunds payments, which will be paid to all buyers at the end of 2015. So far, the department has paid 2 billion baht to some 30,000 successful applicants. For the first-time car rebate scheme is open until December 31st this year. All applicants must submit their documents in person from 8:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. or via the website. They can submit online until midnight of December the 31st, and the buyers can send any additional documents required until January the 15th of 2013. The multicultural nature of Singapore can be seen most clearly in its food. Dr. Runtip Chonapalai went to Singapore and met with famous Singaporean food expert KFC To, who showed us what food lovers and Singaporeans are.
You tell us why you think that food here reflects the diversity of the people?
Singapore is a small little island. It started from nothing. I mean, if you study the history of Singapore, it's a very migrant culture. Chinese, the Indians, the people from the archipelago, Europe, the Arab nations, they came here. So when people go to a new country, they always bring their own food. But what was beautiful was over the years, the Chinese food became not very Chinese. Yeah. The Indian food became not very Indian. They all just
mixed.
It's like the original fusion that happened 100 over years ago. So now there is a true Singapore food culture, and when it comes to food, people bond together. I think it's a very common dish in Southeast Asia, but it's in Singapore, this is like our national dish. Everybody loves it, everybody eats it, you don't think about it. When you don't know what to eat, you eat chicken rice. And a good chicken rice only use Thai jasmine. I think one of my projects that I'm doing is to use world street food culture and empower the disadvantaged. People sold street food in the past because they were poor, and today is a different scenario, but although there's a new generation of disadvantaged people, it would be good to use this culture to empower them. You create jobs, you create opportunities, and you create a form of cheap and meaningful, nutritious food for the masses. So the cheap meal needn't necessarily be controlled by the fast food giants. People can still come down and enjoy a culture like this, get a job, and they get cheap food, and it brings, it contributes back to the economy.
Singaporean food is an eclectic blend of Chinese, Malay and Indian influences. Once in Singapore, one must not miss out on the taste of hawkers or street food.
Thank you, Dr. Rungtip. ASEAN Secretary General Surin Pitsuwan is about to complete his 5-year term at the helm of the regional organization. He admits that Myanmar's transformation and the South China Sea saga between China and the Philippines continue to be the issues worth keeping an eye on. Here's more from Hugh Adams.
Myanmar's ongoing transformation has been one of the region's most significant developments during Surin's tenure, and he's been outspoken about it both as a success story for ASEAN and also as a potential concern. Asked recently what the main highlight was during his time as Secretary General, he pointed to ASEAN's important role in the opening up of Myanmar by, quote, bringing the world in and raising the level of comfort of the leadership to engage with the international community. For Surin, Myanmar validated ASEAN's approach of giving the country time and space rather than the Western path of slapping it with sanctions. But the Secretary General has also offered warnings about ethnic violence in Myanmar, particularly the persecution and discrimination against its minority Rohingya Muslims. The Secretary-General has also spoken extensively on the South China Sea issue, which led to ASEAN's failure to issue a joint communiqué in July for the first time in its history. Surin said that the South China Sea has the risk of becoming Asia's Palestine if ASEAN and China do not resolve the issue quickly. At ASEAN's November meeting, he noted that while ASEAN was committed to finding a resolution to the South China Sea issue, quote, it takes two to tango. But most of Surin's comments have arguably focused on ASEAN's internal challenges. In an interview at the Australian National University earlier this year, he said ASEAN's greatest challenge during the next 5 years would be trying to integrate as a grouping, despite the diversity among member states. If the organisation did not get its act together on forging an ASEAN Economic Community, or AEC, by the end of 2015 to narrow the vast economic divide between countries, Surin said it risked, quote, being a two-tiered ASEAN. His successor, Vietnam's Deputy Foreign Minister Le Lua Min, will have large shoes to fill at a critical time for ASEAN. Now that all eyes are on ASEAN, it will be up to the grouping's future leaders to preserve its centrality in the region in the wake of daunting internal and external challenges. Hugh Adams, Thai PBS.
Thank you, Hugh. And while the south is facing more rain, other areas of the country are likely to be feeling cooler and experiencing morning fog. The Meteorological Department says a moderate high-pressure cell is covering Upper Thailand, and cool weather and morning fog are likely in the north, northeast, central, and eastern regions. From tomorrow until the Wednesday next week, another active high-pressure area from China will extend into Upper Thailand. Cool to cold weather is generally likely in Upper Thailand, with a 4 to 7 degrees Celsius drop and stronger winds. Temperatures in the northern mountains could fall as low as 4 degrees Celsius, with frost in early hours of the day. And that's all the time we have for tonight's edition of Thai PBS English News Service. We'll be back again Monday for our last episode of the news in the English language. I'm Subhajang Klinsawan. สวัสดีครับ